Welcome to Writers Unscripted, curated by the Los Angeles Screenwriting Competition. My name is Will Dawson, and of course, I'll be taking you through this series of conversations that we're having with writers and filmmakers, and it's for you. It's all for the community. As you prepare your scripts for this year's competition, we want to let you know that you are not alone. A community of writers and filmmakers have gone through what you have already, and now look at them, they're thriving, and so will you one day. We have had a host of wonderful people come through, sharing their journeys, sharing their processes, and today is no different. Listen, usually I sit with the person at the beginning of the interview and go through their bio with them so they can tell us all the different points and fine points. But this bio is just too long, so we can't do that this time. But we will have us with today, and we do have with us today Miss Tina Farris. She is CEO of Tina Farris Tours, and we welcome her to Writers Unscripted. Well, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing all right. Thank you for joining us here today. And like I said, usually we go through the bio, but when I was reading that thing, I was like, man, we're going to be here the whole time reading all the things you've done. And I think that's a testament to the hustle, to the work that you've put in. But there are certain things I do want to hit on. As CEO of Tina Farris Tours, yes, you are a tour manager, and you have toured with the greatest. We could drop names if we want to, but just real quick, The Roots with Lil Wayne, with the Black Eyed Peas. You've done tours with Chris Rock. So you've done a lot of things in the industry, but today we want to focus on the other things that you've been doing, and really kind of like the journey you were on from the beginning, and how you were able to change lanes, and how everything poured into the highway that you're on now. So let's talk about your journey from when you were teaching in Los Angeles. Tell us how you got started teaching and why you wanted to.
Funnily enough, I was just talking to a young man this morning, my partner's son, and we were talking about what was his intention on going to college. And he was like, oh, I never really thought about it. I was like, what does your college experience require? And he was like, I didn't think about it. What does yours require? And I said, oh, I chose Los Angeles because I wanted to be an actress. And I was like, oh man, I forgot. I used to want to be an actress. Maybe that's the precipice of all of this, right? Like hindsight. Mm-hmm. So I came to Los Angeles, I went to UCLA. I have incredible stage fright, which is also a part of this story. So I think I geared more towards behind the scenes. I became a teacher because I needed a job, and I saw that you can work at Compton Unified School District real quick as a substitute teacher. Mm-hmm. So I got a substitute teaching position as the orchestra teacher, which I could do because I played bass and was in the orchestra for 12 years of schooling, because my grandmother wouldn't let me quit. And that was as I graduated from UCLA. And then while I was at UCLA, I also first became a fan of The Roots. So all of this is intertwined. I taught at Compton High. They kept me on longer. I hustled and figured out a way to stay permanently. So I became the French teacher, the Spanish teacher, the leadership teacher, and the orchestra professor or teacher. And what else did I do? Oh, I coached the junior varsity basketball team, and I created the Black Students Union and the French Club, because when you teaching, right, you make $27,000 a year. Right. So I had to add stipends to it.
Absolutely.
So by the time I finished, I was making $40,000. I was popping. But so that also speaks to the hustle was always in me.
But listen, you talked about having stage fright. There's no way you can have stage fright with all those hustles, especially in the school system, especially with high school students.
The reason I can speak on this screen is because of COVID. Like when I was doing Zooms and panels during COVID, I have stage fright. I have stage fright.
Wow.
I did some acting while I was at UCLA, And I just remember almost throwing up every time it was time for me to enter the stage and deliver my lines. You know what I mean? It was just crippling. I got through them. I did them. But yeah, I realized I changed my focus, I should say.
That's like a med student, like fainting at the sight of blood. But we got to get you through this somehow.
Right. That's exactly what that's like.
Ooh, okay. All right. So you were teaching. You did all the things. You created clubs. You created lanes for yourself inside the school.
And in the leadership department, which is key, it was bringing all the students together. Now, Compton High has a lot of, it's predominantly Black and Mexican, or Black and Latin, I should say, because there's lots of El Salvadorians, because we in LA, that's how we get down. Right on. And I had to create, I was also in graduate school at the time for clinical psychology, marriage, family, child counseling. So I was learning about systems and how systems got along. And I think I was applying that to, you know, the huge gap between Latin students and Black students, even though they all live in the same neighborhood. And I was 23, like, why y'all fighting over this raggedy ass neighborhood? Like, you're all bugging. Like, it's just a man trying to hold you back. You know what I mean? I was that teacher.
I hear Coolio playing in the background. Hold on, wait. Go ahead.
So I would do things like I would test the boundaries and ask, I took kids on snowboarding trips. Like, you know what I mean? I was doing the shit. I was like, well, it says here in the charter that I could do this if I got this many signatures. And then like I was that teacher. And one day I remember I put on a festival at school. It was Women's History Month. No. It was Latin History Month, September, Latin Heritage Month. And I was like, I'm finna show you y'all how the Olmecs was Black and we all connected. So it was lunchtime and I played over the loudspeaker, like any movie about high schools where you can play over the loudspeaker. I played Do You Want More? You know how it starts with the bagpipes?
Absolutely. So when
the bell rang, it was like, da-da-da, and everybody came out into the quad. Do you want more? I was like, yes. And that was the beginning of like, I'll be putting on stuff.
Look at that. So, all right. So that we're going to have to touch on this then, because then you discovered the roots while you were in school. Clearly, you're playing the music behind you. When you start
integrated them into my job with the kids.
You gotta do it right. So how was it? How did you meet them and then work with them? Like, let's talk about that real quick.
It's funny. I was dating this UPS gentleman. And he played the Roots, and I was like, oh, I wasn't really that much into hip hop. I'm from like Sacramento. Being from Sacramento, Bay Area played different hip hop, right? Like, I didn't know everybody that everybody else knew 50 years ago. Like, I didn't know KRS-One and all that shit. I didn't know any of that. But I was a bass player, and my grandfather was a Motown producer who, by the time I met him, he was like on the road with Smokey Robinson, and I only saw him on the road, right? I didn't see him at Christmas time or anything like that. It was always at a casino or at a theater. Right. So I think I naturally was in tune to the Roots because I heard bass lines. And I was like, who's this band? Who's this hip hop playing bass? Like, that's crazy. I fucks with them. So they came to UCLA. And I was like, oh shit, that's that band I was listening to. I'm gonna go see them. I'm gonna be in the front, and I'm just gonna be in there. And I literally have pictures in my photo album, because the photo album,
of course,
of the day I met them at UCLA at Kirkhoff Hall. And it was because I was playing the air bass and rhyming rhyme for rhyme with Black Thought in the front row, and my Erykah Badu hair wrap on.
Okay, all right.
He was like, you want to come back here? I was like, do I? Yes. I'm coming backstage. Hey. And that's how I met them, and I kept contact with them for the next shit. That was in 94. I didn't start working for them till 99. So like the next place they went on tour was Sacramento. So I drove home, and from the crowd, I was like, remember me? I was there last week. They were like, okay, weirdo. And then I became the LA John. So I have fond memories of Dice Raw and Malik B jumping in my car for me to take them to the weed house.
Okay.
And I drive by that weed house every day now. It's been gentrified. There's happy white couples living there. But it was a trap house. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Y'all really turned this neighborhood around.
Times they are a changing. Yeah.
Man, listen. So then I started visiting them, and I had a relationship with Hub. Like, I talked to him all the time because he's a bass player. My uncle's a bass player, and you know, in my head, I'm like, I think he was trying to holler because that's how niggas was or is, whatever. And then back in the day, but you know, I kept it like, no. Like, I am a nerd, and I really like bass music. So Compton let me take home. I worked at Compton High. They let me take home a bass. And I would practice at home, and I would play roots bass lines and be like, Hub, listen to this. I got it. Nerd. I'm a nerd. I just want y'all to key in on how much of a nerd I am. And then as I was teaching French, and very much like Abbott Elementary, I was that teacher trying to get resources. And so I went to France and followed the routes to France. And in my suitcase, I brought back magazines and all kinds of stuff so that my French kids could, we'd have other materials to learn other than the books that I had from 1972, which I also took to the superintendent's office. Like, we need a town hall meeting because we got the old French. They were like, we got to get rid of this girl. So I had that. I put them on to Les Nubians. We would, translate songs. You know what I mean? Like, Lauryn Hill was big, so we would translate into that. Like, you know what I mean? I always included music because I've always included music. And they knew I was a teacher, and that was like also made me their nerdy friend who's a teacher. And then one year, and because I was a teacher, I had spring breaks off and summers off. And they were on tour, and I think I don't know, I won some money. I would gamble. I come from a Filipino family. We'd be gambling. So I won about $1,500 to the casino, and I was like, I'm going on tour with the Roots with my $1,500. $1,500 whole dollars for the whole summer. That's enough.
Never enough.
That's enough money. I'll be fine. So I followed them to Elysée Montmartre, and I followed them to Amsterdam. I stayed on the train. I was like, no, I'm not riding on the tour bus, but I'm gonna follow y'all places. And one day the tour manager at the time, Toya, said, come here, tell this promoter that I said, bah, 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 bah. She was asking me to speak French.
It's French, right? Yeah.
But we have a translator. She's like, I want your French. I need them to know what I mean. So, okay, I might be good enough to give him this broken French. And it was. And then Tariq was like, Black Thought, we were going through, not security, but we were going through something because it wasn't security. It was pre-9/11. So they were checking our bags. They were being racist. And Black Thought was like, tell this pencil dick motherfucker. I became like the black translator. Like, you know how Keenan, what is Key and Peele? You know how he does the Obama translator?
Yeah.
That was me with the Roots. Like, like the French was hella ghetto. Still is, but it's very useful. And then I hung in Philly for a while in the summer and went to Black Lilies. And one day, Sean G., who is now the president of Live Nation Urban, was like, why don't you just stay? And I was like, I got to ask my students because I got to get them through because, here for the people. And they said, well, Miss Farris, you always tell us to go for things and that there was more outside of Compton. So you should take your own advice and do that. And so I did. Okay.
All right. Look at that.
Coach Carter.
You gonna put all the movies.
I'm gonna put all the movies.
Like starring Tina Farris. All of them. That was amazing that you were able to translate French for them. and they have kept you around just in order to do that. And I think that's amazing. And it's just from your hustling and being a teacher. I think that's so. Then you were touring with them, but when did you become the official manager or official tour manager for them?
Oh, right away.
Yeah.
The tour manager at the time didn't want to be on the road anymore. One day she came to the gate. Where are we going? We were going to Brazil.
Mm.
It was me and a guy named Kilo Saunders. That was it. That was the only crew members. And then there was like 5 Roots at the time because Scratch was with us. And she was like, I'm not going. Go ahead. So I was supposed to be the assistant tour manager. There was no assistanting. She just left.
Yeah.
And I was on my own from there. So everything I figured out about touring up until probably 2002 was, hook or crook, shucking and jiving.
Were you still in your 20s then when you were doing this, or were you a little old? Yeah, look at that. Wow. All right. Now here, I want you to watch how I bring this all together. You ready? Here we go. All right. As their tour manager, you always had to tell their story to the cities and the places that you were going, right? So you were always kind of a storyteller, whether it was teaching or being with the Roots or whatever. So your love of storytelling began at an early age, and you've been doing it most of your career. All right. So let's talk about let's pivot. Let's pivot into filmmaking, and when you started to use that device of storytelling to put on celluloid instead of just doing it on the road.
Well, I had written a story in my 30s, very kind of like I was probably on the road with the Roots for about 6 or 7 years when I just like, oh, I better make a change or I'm going to be a tour manager forever.
Right.
So I was like, this would be a really good TV show. And so I wrote my own scripts. I had gotten together with my homegirl, Nicole Jefferson, who's now Nicole Jefferson Asher, who does P-Valley and Self-Made, etc. Got with my girls, Dream Hampton. Like I always had it around me and I watched people grow up in it. And I was just, I don't know, the same probably stage fright thing. It was like, I don't like what my writing looks like. I can't. Let me just do what I do best and glow up that way. And then you make a lot of money, like I've created a space for myself, the legend, blah, 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 all that. And I didn't totally jump off. It didn't get sold. I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these ideas, all these scripts that I can probably run through, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to make the shift. I wasn't brave enough or courageous enough to just be like, let me stop everything and go tour. Same thing happened with acting. I wasn't courageous enough to say, I'm just going to be broke and be a waitress.
Right.
That ain't not me.
Right.
In fact, I have a high aversion to not working. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fare well for me. So I was like, yeah, nah. If I can do it at the same time, then I'll do it. But if not, I won't. And that, of course, you really can't all the time, right? Like you really got to throw yourself into something because your attention is diverted. And that's been what happened. I came up like this. And so during COVID, when the world shut down, I was like, I'm gonna apply to film school. Fuck it. Maybe film school will push me into it, like a stage mom. I'm gonna use film school to be the stage mom that I have. And my partner's like, well, where you want to go? And I looked up the top 3 schools, and it was AFI, NYU, or USC. And I was like, I'm gonna keep it South Central.
Gotcha.
That's the only school I want to go to. I want to go to this school and I'm going to this program. And it was like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm like, okay, then I'll apply to the other program at this school. But this is the only school. I'm only applying to USC. And it's the Peter Stark program or it's the production program. And I applied and I got into both of them.
Okay.
Just had to decide. And the professor told me, well, Peter Stark, they were like, produce. He said, well, you know, you're going to be in school with a lot of younger people and they're going to get on your nerves. So you should probably stay. And this is a teacher there. He was like, you should probably do the 2-year program and not the 3-year program. And the difference was that the production program shows you how to make films. Mm-hmm. And the Peter Stark Producers program shows you how to get films made. And that was like, oh, that's the push I need, is the how do you get them made?
Right.
And so I did that.
Okay. Every film starts with a story. Do you remember the first story you wrote that you wanted to push to produce?
I mean, like TV show about a tour manager coming up in the early aughts with a hip hop band.
Okay.
That I ended up getting that sold to Stars, and we were in the developing a pilot deal, and then the strikes happened, and then after that they didn't move forward.
Okay, it was appropriately titled Tour. All right, so I just let everybody know that it was titled Tour. All right. So, is there any chance that it could get made still?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. There's just some, and that's, you know, I have some differences with my producers on how it should be made and fleshed out, and all of the making of it got in the way of the actual sentiment of it. And I don't know if it's time has passed or not, but like Dave has happened and rap shit has happened. And so I'm like, I told y'all that I had a show. Like, y'all just take too long. But I mean, there's Pepsi and Coke, right? So right. I'm sure there's still time for it.
And let's talk about that. But they came from the artist's view, right? Dave, rapper, the girls, rappers. But would you want the protagonist to be the artist, or would you want it to be like
it was the young girl doing tormented?
Yeah. So that would still be fresh and new.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm now in the process of rewriting for present day, because I was writing it from the 90s, early 2000 perspective.
Yeah.
And so now I've got to figure out how that looks, because as I've grown up and I have the answer to what the question was when the first 5 drafts of the script.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's these green parakeets that come through town. You know them?
Yeah. They smoke weed in the trees. I got you. Go ahead. Okay.
They're so cute. Anyway, now I'm trying to do it from a present day perspective of being the CEO training new people. So and it's a little hard for me.
A lot of
therapeutic. Yeah,
a lot of flashbacks.
Like, it was fun to do it, to be able to tell stories of all the shit that was going on. You know what I mean? Like, that's the fun look. Now it's like, don't nobody care about y'all old niggas.
People care. People want to know. People want to know about it. I mean, that's why. Look, this whole Freaknik thing that came out recently.
It's really good.
People want to know those. People want to see the grains. They want to see the grainy footage from back in the day. And I think
it was really good.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it came out great as well. So you got your feet wet in writing. You went to school.
I graduated last May.
Okay.
And one of the things that it did do is it made me make a movie. It made me make my short.
Oh.
And so I had a class where you had to write it, and you have to decide, the class votes if you're going to direct it or you're going to produce it. And I was like, no, I don't need to direct it. I'm not a director. I'm just going to produce it and write it. And then one of the classmates were like, well, why? Why aren't you directing it? And I was like, I don't know. I never thought of being a director. And I was somewhere. I'm not going to name drop because it'll sound, well, yes, I am. I was at a party for a certain president.
Okay.
And Don Cheadle was there.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, what are you doing? Da-da-da-da. I was like, oh, I went back to school so I could learn how to run everything. And so I went to producer school. He was like, if you want to be in charge of everything, you want to direct. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was the director. I thought because I was producing it and I put it on that I was the boss. And he was like, yeah, nah. So then I went back to school and I was like, okay, I think I'll direct it.
Okay. The name of the short is Living Proof.
Yes.
Give us a little taste of what that is about.
Living Proof is the story about a singer in the 70s in the wake of Harvey Milk and George Mosconi's death. The singer's name is Sylvester.
Okay.
And he's about to put on the show of his life at the War Memorial Opera House in a time where they didn't want no gay folks to have no kind of concerts. So the city fought for it. And he fought the city for it. And it's right before he's about to go on stage, and he does acid. And then all of his stage fright takes over. And it's his tour managers outside trying to get him to come out. It's showtime. And he's having this inner dialogue with himself about getting on stage. You see where I'm going, right?
I love how you incorporated the stage fright. You got the tour manager in there. I will not ask you if it's based on somebody that you were a tour manager.
It is.
I will not ask who, but I will say that I love that you were able to take that story from there. And
well, I have a picture of, so my grandfather, this is why it's important. His name's Harvey Fuqua, and he was Sylvester's manager.
Okay.
And in the items that I have since he passed, I have a picture of Sylvester, my grandfather, his girlfriend and partner at the time, and this white man. And I asked my friend, I'm like, who is this guy in this picture with Sylvester that I have? And my friend's like, that's Harvey Milk. I was like, huh. So I started researching the picture. And then a song that I heard, You Are My Friend or something, I heard a live version, I Shazammed it. And then the Shazam brought me to the album Living Proof.
Right.
Look into the album Living Proof. And my grandfather produced the album Living Proof. And I studied the story and everything. And I was like, and I'm dealing with one of my clients who's quitting tour at the same time. And I'm like, these clients, these folks always have stage fright. Like it's such a big deal to put yourself out there, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm enamored actually, and I admire artists, which is probably why I stay behind stage, because I feel like they can do things that I can't do, like actually stand on stage and perform. Like that's incredible to me because it's something that I find so hard to do.
Right.
So when I was reading about that night in that album, I read that Sylvester was high the whole time and he was dropping acid and him and the girls and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I know how this story probably went down based on my experience. So I wrote a script based on my experience. I used my grandfather as me, the guy talking him out. And so the Sylvester's words were every artist that I ever worked with, all the things that they say. And he does acid from the beginning and we go through the acid trip with him. And then he comes out on the stage.
Okay. How long did it take you to write the script?
Since it was part of school, you just did a few drafts, but probably the semester, you had to turn it in by the end of the semester. So I don't know, like 3 months.
Okay. All right.
4 months.
And so now is the short made? It's made. It's
made. It's
in the can. So now you are
in the can.
You're touring it through festivals appropriately.
I did a couple. I mean, in all honesty, it looks like a student film.
So what was that process like, though, getting it into festivals? Like I have a friend who he said that he has to pay in order to get his films into festivals, his shorts and things.
You got to pay in order to see if people say yes or no.
But if they say no, do you get your money back?
Like an application?
No, you know.
I've got a lot of them.
So walk us through that process.
The process is Film Freeway, right? Fortunately, USC made sure part of our final is to make sure you have all your materials ready so that it even goes to festivals. So you have your time code and you have it accessibility made and you have all your permits that you use to do the film in a folder just in case. All of your music is licensed. You know what I mean? In case. I did go through the process of getting a festival license.
Okay.
for 2 years. I paid for that. And then I learned that you don't really need to do that unless somebody buys it. But like those are all the things that you learn to do by just going out there with my producerial hat, you know, and doing it and seeing. I checked to see how much it would cost to license the footage I use. I used some Diane Feinstein footage in it, you know what I mean, of her announcing that George Moscone and Harvey Milk had been murdered, so that we had the, you know, the onset of what happens in the film, or the why, right? And just going through that experience was like, and not stopping until you get it done is producing.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Wanting to see it on screen and festivals. Like sometimes I'll throw a festival in there, but I did it. I did the 2 ones I wanted to do, Essence and Black Star Film Festival, and so
they screened there. They did screen
there, and I'm like, that's enough for me.
Okay, all right. So how was it seeing your film on the screen? How was it like being at the festival and seeing it?
It's so dope. It was amazing. I know a lot of people get scared seeing their stuff on screen, but you know, of course, you look at all the stuff that was messed up, but I wasn't too critical of myself with that. I thought it was great, and I thought it was so interesting. Even when I was shooting or directing, just hearing people say stuff I wrote, like, wow, that's what a high. Like that makes sense. Or them questioning, like, what do you mean by this? I had Bashir Salahuddin played my grandfather in it. So he came in, you know, he's a seasoned professional actor. He's like, what do you mean by this? And so I had to explain to him, like he was helping me direct him. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh shit, this is a real thing. And then seeing him deliver on stage and seeing, you know, knowing the countless color corrections I had to do. And, you know what I mean? It was all technical watching it.
Right.
The second one, they didn't have the music up loud enough when it comes in. And I was like, oh, do you know how many times I had to do that? Get it right. Like, what are you doing? What do you mean? Turn it up. And I was sitting in the middle. So I was like, fuck, I can't even get out and run and make him turn it up. Like, my bad. Now I know the next time I go, sit on the sidelines. But it was great. It was great. It was a great experience. And like, who knows? I might put it in another, like now I'm choosing festivals based on places I want to go. Like, ooh, I ain't ever been to that part of France. Let me enter it.
And you can speak the language, so let's go. Let's hit it. Let's put it on.
I want to go to the Marseille blah 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 festival.
All right, we got to bring it back to now. So you had stage fright going on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any type of stage fright seeing your baby on stage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 1 second.
Or what was that? Or what was that feeling? It wasn't stage fright because you weren't there, but you actually were because it was your representation. So
I see it more like you know, when you're in kindergarten and you show your picture in front of the classroom and you wait for everybody to say, yay. You know what I mean? It felt more like that. Like it was more of a presentation. And I never felt bad about the presentation. Like while it looked like a student film, yeah, I think it still looked good, you know, and I still think I put all the pieces together to make it happen. So I really relished in seeing it on a bigger screen. I absolutely loved it. Like I absolutely loved that. And just like I wrote the words that are coming out of that person's mouth. And I created a lookbook, and that's the shot I said I wanted on screen. And oh my God, look at how it all comes together. That's dope.
For all the screenwriters out there, all the script writers out there who are going to submit for this competition, look, this is what it's all about. Like hearing people say the words that you wrote, that you thought of, that you birthed, like that is the ultimate high.
It's super high.
Yeah. And so you started about when you can still submit your script. You can still submit your script. So just keep that in mind. Just the process might be grueling, but the end result of hearing people saying your words and and performing what you thought of is just the ultimate. So we talked about your whole career. Like we talked about being in UCLA, touring with the Roots and all the other big names, all the other names on the top of the marquee. All of that helped you craft your story when you became a filmmaker, and of course, you're using what you've experienced in order to make that happen. I need you to tell those people out there who are starting their writing journey or who are in the process now, uh, give them some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom, if you can.
It's very hard to write, and it's very hard to be disciplined, and I struggle with it every day when I say, let me go write. I need to make an hour, I need to make 2 hours, I need to find some discipline. Like, I wish I was more disciplined. So I'm enamored by people who have that discipline and actually can't do anything else but write, like want that more than anything. And I think you go with that. Like you can write 1,000 things, and if it gets made or it doesn't get made, you still wrote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you still have a body of work that you can show, and that since time keeps on ticking as it does, it will have its place. You'll know why you wrote it. If it doesn't jump off that day, something will come along, and there'll be a producer that comes along or somebody that's looking for something and be like, yeah, this is very timely, let me get that. And it's just creating, working out a what's the word I'm looking for? It's working your skill out over and over again, right? It's working a muscle. It's I am enamored by people that can write, because I'm telling you, it's a struggle for me. I don't know if I would have done it had I not had a classroom and it's something that was due, because I'm a producer, so I strive on deadlines, right?
Yeah.
And giving myself a deadline is different, but people who can just do it, I'm like, hats off, like, keep on.
Okay. All right. We've been speaking with Tina Farris, CEO of Tina Farris Tours, and the creator of not only a television show with the appropriate name Tour, but also of the short film Living Proof that has screened in 2 festivals. And when she feels like she's going to take it to other places, it's going to be like, well, when she goes on vacation, the film's
like,
all of a sudden.
A film festival.
and let's also note that she might or might not be on vacation right now in Jamaica. We don't know, or maybe not. We don't know, because the background says maybe she built a computer lab.
Parakeets are moving. I don't know.
We don't know. She got the weed smoking parakeets in the trees. We don't know where she is. We don't know. But it could be any place in the world, and that means that she is doing her thing from everywhere. Tina, before we let you go, we usually do this thing with our guests where we ask them 5 questions. I'm going to be winging these because I do not have them in front of me now. But since you are an established writer and a filmmaker, I think this first question should be a good one for you. What is a word that you overuse? A word that when you're writing, you just use it a little too much?
A word I use too much. Literally.
Like when you go back, I can't say that.
Literally.
Literally?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you were not a filmmaker / toy manager / producer / everything, what would you be doing with your life?
I'd be a gardener.
Okay. All right. And maybe not Jamaica where you are now? Maybe. We talk about superpowers with writers because their superpower is writing. But if you had to have a superpower that was not writing, what do you think it would be?
Confidence.
Okay. All right. What is who is your North Star? Who do you look up to, and who is your, I won't say mentor per se, but who is the person that you learn the most from and maybe want to impress the most? Like who is that person in your life?
There's 2. Mara Keel and Chris Rock.
Okay. All right. Okay. There's one last question. I might have to wing this. What's next? How about let's just do that. What's next for you?
What's next? Well, I have 2 companies that I'm working with, one that's finance and one that is a production company. And it's Black women who are like, you know what, fuck all this green light shit. I'm gonna do my own shit.
Right.
And it's changed my way of thinking, especially producing our own. And so it's nice to have a financial arm. I have the content arm, and then I actually have a distributor arm, because the people in my hub, you know, your peers, I have two Black men who are creating a streaming app. And, you know, to me, that's it. Like, I don't want to I don't want to wait to get, you know, the carrot put on me like Stars did for 2 years just to say, no, I'm not developing. That was 2 years of my life. You know what I mean? That I could have had it on something else. I think I'm not so precious about the Netflix and the Hulus and all of that. And like, if I can put this or help another streaming platform get more eyes on it and it's Black owned, then like, we don't need all them other folks anymore. Right. Let's just be insular and take it to the top. And you know what I mean? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about old footage that I had. I just had a call with somebody I hadn't spoken to in probably a decade, but we were on tour together. And I was like, hey, don't you have that footage from the ... tour we did? And he was like, yeah. And I completely pitched to him a whole, based on Freaknik, you know what I mean? Based on my homegirl who has this footage she just found and we were producing through. I'm like, what are we waiting on? Let's just edit it and do it. So I'm very excited about like this box of mini tapes that I have of this one group in Japan. I'm like, I'm gonna go through that this weekend and see what that looked like.
I love it. We could have spent 2 hours just talking about tour stories, but we did not do that. We wanted to talk about your journey and what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
But we are very, very happy that you took some time out to be with us today. Tina
Thank
Farris,
you for having me.
Yes, indeed. Please look her up. She's doing all the things later on this year, maybe when she's at a festival in your city with the film. The short film is Living Proof. So please look that up and look out for it. She may be in your city sometime soon. Tina Farris, thank you so much for joining us. And for all you guys, please submit your scripts. Los Angeles Screenwriting Competition. You could submit it today to lascreenwriting.com.
What's the deadline?
The first deadline is passed. The second deadline is coming up. That's what I will tell you, because we don't know when this is airing, but you still have time, and you're going to please make sure that you get it in and take the wealth of knowledge and the gems that Tina dropped today and incorporate them into your writing routine, writing schedule, and get that script done. Just don't stop. Thank you again for joining us. Writers Unscripted is another edition in the can and ready to go to festivals near you. I've been Will Dawson, and I will see you the next time. Again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.